go on a ghost hunt with him. I said,
Forget
let me tell
it.
you what. I said, the first, because I live in New Orleans, and there are lots of ghosties down here. I said, if I walk in and the ghost even looks at me, I'm gone. He's like,
Yeah,
what do you
I mean,
mean? I said, I'm out of here. He said, let me get this right, Jay. He said, you'll go chase aliens down, but you won't talk to God. I said, you're right. I'd rather mess with aliens. I said, I got a rule. Don't mess with dead people, and they won't mess with you.
Yeah, I mean, I had one, ghostly encounter when my grandfather died. One of those experiences.
One of those revisits, yeah.
Yeah, when somebody dies and you hear and experience it.
Yeah.
He was in the hospital and I was at home, and he basically came home and all kinds of poltergeist experience, sounds and effects, but nothing was moved, nothing was changed. That's why I refer to it that way, because it was just auditory. But that's the only one I've ever had, and that's the only one I ever want to have. For me, channeling is done in a brightly lighted room, and there's lots of people around, and there's a lot of conversation that goes on the whole time that it's going on. And if it can't, come on, if you can't establish contact with a source that is robust enough that it can interact with you as a normal, conscious, fully functioning human being, and the other people around you, what good is it?
That's true. That's a good point. Because
if you gotta sing chants and light candles and do incense and all that nonsense and go into a trance, that's a disabling profession.
Yeah. And see, that's a good point. I mean, if it can't work when there's other people around and it's busy, then you're right. I mean, you might as well just move on to another source because there's just something not working there, or something not right.
I invite you to read it and.
Well, I'm gonna finish it, and I'll probably get you back on after I finish it, but. So far, I haven't really had any problems with it. And I heard so much flack for poor Richard. And, when I first got this, I was like, because I literally, for some reason, ICAR they consider us ufology's policemen. We get, anytime anything goes on in ufology that someone don't like, we get emails. Well, I literally got 300-plus emails over this book.
Uh-huh.
And some of them were taken up for you. Some of them were criticizing Richard for endorsing it. Some were criticizing you. But it was a platitude of different things going on here.
Uh-huh.
So, when I'm not busy, I actually respond to my email. So I wrote back to all these people, and I said, well, why don't you tell me exactly what the problem was? And why do you have a problem with this? And why do you have a problem with Richard having a problem? Or why do you have a problem with Richard endorsing this? Because I'm curious, And the only word I ever heard was a channeling word. And I said, well, if you're going to just criticize someone for channeling and not go and take everything else at face value, then don't bother me. I mean, you can't just pick. It's easy to pick one thing out of any book and criticize it. That's not hard to do. Anybody can do that. I can find something to criticize in every book I've ever read, regardless how good the book is. But what I was looking for was an overview. I was wanting them to tell me about the whole book, and I actually said this on the air. And I said, guys, I got all this email about this one or two specific things. I said, I want to know what you thought about the book entirely. Well, most of the people that wrote back to me really didn't have a problem with the book. So, they were picking on that one thing, and I said, well, why don't y'all contact the lady, ask her how she does it, which I thought she explained in the book, but I still said, why don't you write to the lady, ask her, maybe she can help you understand. And then I said, well, you know what, screw all of this. I talked to my wife and said, why don't you give Richard a call, see if you can get her on the show, and we'll just discuss this on the show, and everybody can listen, and everybody can make up their mind from the way. Now, anyone who's listening to this show right now knows you are obviously not a nutcase, okay?
I hope not.
Well, if they're listening to this conversation, it's not that hard of a thing. It's not like you're off saying crazy, outlandish stuff or anything along those lines. So, people need to pay attention sometimes. And I honestly, I got to be honest with you, I think a lot of this attack on Richard is Richard's getting kind of famous now, and I think they were just picking on Richard. I really do. I don't think it was anything more than that.
Let me say a couple of things about channeling itself. There's a lot of people who consider Pythagoras to have been, father of mathematics, who have done many great intellectual things and philosophical things, and he had the Pythagorean school and so on and so forth. But not a lot of people know that Pythagoras used a channeling device similar to what I do. I don't go into a trance. I don't channel. I don't even consider myself psychic, But he used a device that was on wheels, like a planchette, and it pointed to letters or figures or whatever and spelled out messages. There's, the most respected so-called channeled material in the history of channeling was delivered by a board-type device, a prosthetic device. I refer to it as a prosthetic. It's like a translation device. There are a lot of people who immediately say, "Oh, well, if you mess with a Ouija board," and it's not even a Ouija board. It's a big circle, and I have a little round plastic thing. It's almost like writing letters on a circle. I just have a special board, and you can buy one. Anybody can buy one.
You're using this so they have a tool to communicate with you with.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is that people get crazy and they say, "Oh, you're going to get possessed if you use a board." Well, let me tell you, if anything interacts with you when you're using a board, it is something that is already there. You just have not been aware of it because it doesn't have a means of speaking. It doesn't have a voice. It's already there. And if you're using a board, all that does is just give a voice to what is already there. And wouldn't you rather know that it's already there and then be able to and have the knowledge to deal with it than to just go along your whole life and have something hanging around you that you can't get rid of?
That you can't get rid of, yeah.
So that's just one thing. And the other thing is that the criticism about the use of Ouija boards, because remember, they were so popular. They sold it as a game in Walmart.
They're still popular. They're still popular.
Whatever. And all of a sudden, there was a movie made by Hollywood about a case that was not presented as it really was, because there was some guy on the internet, some magazine, and he did a complete study, fairly recently of this case that the movie The Exorcist was based on, and it was a boy, and there was a whole lot of really interesting things. But it had nothing to do with anybody using a Ouija board and getting possessed by it. But because there was a movieized version of some little girl playing with a Ouija board and suddenly getting possessed and then barfing up pea soup and having her head spin around and throwing priests out the window, the whole paranormal metaphysical world, was reduced to Jello on the floor saying, "Oh, my God, don't touch it. You'll get possessed. I've got to burn my Ouija board right now. It's going to attack me as I sleep, for God's sakes." It's like, it was the most unbelievable thing. So all of these people who one would think were rational and intelligent were being stampeded away from something that is a really unique tool for psychic and personal, internal investigation because of a movie.
Yeah. Well, the Ouija
is
board
that astonishing?
Yeah, it is. But see, that's what bothered me about that is because the Ouija board is no different than tarot cards are. And
absolutely not.
If you're going to criticize one, then you have to criticize both. And actually, there's other methods like scurrying and other stuff that we can throw into this loop if we want. But you can't get, and I've said this in the past, because, I'm not a big fan of any of this because Ouija board scared the crap out of me, I'll be honest with you. But and it has nothing to do with any movie, and it has to do with personal experiences as a young man. But the thing about it is there's tarots, there's a Ouija board, there's the ruin stones. There's a lot of different things that you can use to communicate with, but this is what these are. They are communication tools.
They are tools, and you have to learn how to use them. You have to be a trained user.
You do,
and you don't get trained without getting trained by. And I'm getting ready to make a set of videos to teach people about this.
Well,
one of the most important things you need, for example, if you're using any kind of channeling method, and to me the least reliable is trans-channeling or mediumship. Well, mediumship,
depends on the medium.
I've read about a lot of really great mediums that have really
brought some good ones. There's some crazy ones.
Fantastic stuff. But trans-channeling is and just saying, oh, well, the voice comes into my... Well, you know what? There's a whole bunch of people in the Fundamentalist Baptist Church down the street that the voice of God comes into their head and says, go down and, go across the ocean and kill a bunch of Iraqis or whatever, because God told you to. And presidents even get voices like that in their head. Do not rely on voices in your head ever under any circumstances. If you understand dissociation, you need to understand that. But, so anyhow, you've got this whole culture that got turned against this instrument. They are wild-eyed and scared and acting crazy and irrational, and it just boggles the mind. And then all these people come along with these contactee cases, and you read some of the stuff that the contactees come up with, and you read some of the channeled, space alien, Lord Sananda and Ashtar Command, and and that kind of, and then Nancy and the Vedas and so forth, and it all just gives the whole, it's more of the noise to signal ratio.
But, you know, I think sometimes that stuff is put there deliberately to keep people that are doing legitimate work from getting too far in the fields. Because every now and then I'll notice that someone will get popular that is obviously full of BS, but they will get popular. And
they manage to get their books published, and they become best. I've got a whole bookcase of it. I call it the Mumbo Jumbo Shelf.
And it's true. And all of a sudden, and see for us, because, you know, we do the base study, so we have the base things that happen in abductions. Now, of course, there's this other world of I don't want to call it BS, because somebody's telling the truth out there, but a lot of it is just that. It's interpretations by the individual which are wrong. They're not correct. A lot of times you can only interpret things with your own life experiences, and sometimes your life experiences don't equip you for what you're seeing. And some things we simply can't understand because we're just not that evolved yet. Yeah. This is going on a ghost hunt with him. I said, let me tell you what. I said, because I live in New Orleans, and there are lots of ghosties down here. I said, if I walk in and the ghost even looks at me, I'm gone. He's like, what do you mean? I said, I'm out of here. He said, let me get this right, Jay. He said, you'll go chase aliens down, but you won't talk to God. I said, you're right. I'd rather mess with aliens. I said, I got a rule. Don't mess with dead people, and they won't mess with you.
Yeah, I mean, I had one, ghostly encounter.
That's true. That's a good point. Because
if you gotta sing chants and light candles and do incense and all that nonsense and go into a trance, that's a disabling profession.
Yeah, and see, that's a good point. I mean, if it can't work when there's other people around and it's busy, then you're right. I mean, you might as well just move on to another source because there's just not something not working there, or something not right.
I invite you to read it, and I have. For me, channeling is done in a brightly lighted room, and there's lots of people around, and there's a lot of conversation that goes on the whole time that it's going on, and if it can't, come on, if you can't establish contact with a source that is robust enough that it can interact with you as a normal, conscious, fully functioning human being, and the other people around you, what good is it? When my grandfather died, one of those experiences.
One of those revisits,
Yeah, when somebody dies and you hear and experience it. Yeah. He was in the hospital and I was at home, and he basically came home and all kinds of poltergeist experience, sounds and effects. But nothing was moved, nothing was changed. That's why I refer to it that way, because it was just auditory. But that's the only one I've ever had, and that's the only one I ever want. And
well, I'm gonna finish it, and I'll probably get you back on after I finish it. But so far, I haven't really had any problems with it. And I heard so much flack for poor Richard. And when I first got this, I was like, because I literally, for some reason, ICAR they consider us ufology's policemen. We get. Anytime anything goes on in ufology that someone don't like, we get emails. Well, I literally got 300 plus emails